Thank you, Rob. Today, I welcome you all to our open table where we connect with each other in the essential work of imagining and building a community where everyone has access to safe and secure housing. We acknowledge that we gather on the traditional homelands of the Puyallup tribe of Indians who have lived on and stewarded these lands since the beginning of time and continue to do so today. We also acknowledge the traumatic history of conquest, genocide, and stolen lands. Today, I ask us to reflect on another traumatic reality and to honor those who engage in confronting and healing its effects. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. This violence is a leading cause of homelessness. In the United States, according to the National Network to End Domestic Violence, between 22 and 57% of women and children are homeless due to domestic violence. Those who leave their abusive partner multiple times due to domestic violence often experience multiple events of homelessness. And in addition, over 90% of homeless women have experienced severe physical or sexual violence at some point in their lives, and 63% have been victims of intimate partner violence as adults. In our work at New Connections, assisting women leaving incarceration, we also find the vast majority of them have experienced this kind of violence in their lives as well. When a person chooses to leave an abusive partner, safe and affordable housing is one of the primary barriers they'll face for themselves and their children. Both feminist activists and social service providers have worked mightily to address immediate and ongoing needs through confidential shelters and transitional housing services. However, in one nationwide study, more than half the survivors who identified a need for housing services did not receive them. Those are a few of the numbers. Each day, some of us here share space with survivors of domestic violence, and some of us continue to heal from past traumas ourselves. When we've listened well, and when the stars align, people who feel unsafe for a good reason can find refuge and sometimes a path to long-term stability. Today, I speak to honor those of you who make yourself present every day to the realities of intimate partner violence in your agencies, your advocacy groups, your elected positions, your lives. When I volunteered at a domestic violence shelter in La Grande, Oregon, a small rural college town of 12,000, I helped each year with the October domestic violence awareness activities. One of these was to encourage the men in our community to contribute their names and pay for a full-page ad in the local paper, taking responsibility to build a community that was safe for all and to speak out against domestic and sexual violence. Such an ad can be a performance, of course, with little real practical consequence, but I know many men told me it was not easy to do, and the challenge to speak out against violence cut more deeply than they thought it would. So here we are, facing the challenge together. Welcome to our table, where we share and act to counter the realities of violence with the power of community. So welcome everyone this morning.
Good morning.
So for those of you who are new, just a couple points about how we do our work together here. Our norms for Zoom are to raise your hand function on the program whenever you want to speak, so you can be considered in order. And if you're in a place where you can't do that function, do whatever it takes to get attention. And Rob will be paying as close attention as he can to that. Also, to mute yourself when you're not talking so we don't have disruptions. And also to keep yourself, to stop your video if you're doing some other kind of activity that might interfere with other people's distractions. Also, importantly, for this, we use the chat as a place to communicate with one another during the meeting. It's an active space. You can put your information about yourself or someone you'd like to have contact you, or resources you have, or events that are coming up, or questions you have. We save these and they're archived, so they're available to you at a future time. And then with the community norms, Rob usually posts these. I didn't look at the chat, so I'm assuming they're there. So pay attention to those in terms of how we speak with each other, the kind of respect we show, and the challenges that we make to how we do things so that we are following the things we set earlier on as our goals to be enacted. So with that, if there's anyone new here today, joining us for the first time or returning from a long time away, just raise your hand and be recognized. Tell us who you are, and if you're part of an organization and want to share that, that would be helpful to us so we can think about how we might network best with you.
Maureen.
Good morning. I'm coming back after a long time. And I have as some of you know, I have a rare, advanced, aggressive cancer. I don't know anything about the future, but for the moment, I have good energy. I'm strong. My hair is growing in. And I thank all of you for your healing thoughts and prayers. I am writing those every hour of every day and for all that you do.
Thank you, Maureen. That's wonderful to have you here.
Zev.
Hey, I haven't been back on these calls in a while. I just want to reintroduce myself. I'm Zev. I think last time I was here, I was still working on the homeless outreach team for Comprehensive Life Resources. I left that job a bit ago, and I'm now working full-time for the Home in Tacoma for All campaign. So if you have any questions about that work, let me know.
Welcome back, Zev. It's nice to have you on your work as well. Rochelle?
Hi, my name is Rachel. I'm with Communities and Schools in Lakewood, Washington. My title, we're tossing between Housing Stability Coordinator and Student Support Coordinator. I work specifically with McKinney-Vento students and their families. And this is my first time here. It's kind of like my first big girl job here in like the social work world. So I just want to learn as much as I can and get my students and their families connected to resources.
Wonderful, Rachel. You've come to a good place. We look forward to having you here. Victor.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Victor. This is my first time here, and also I'm new to the area. I work with Peace Community Center. I am one of the two, thank you. I'm one of the two student and family resource coordinators. We're going to be working with schools in the Hilltop area, and I'm here to get to know you guys, hopefully network a little bit and just absorb all the information I can, since, like I said, I'm really new to the area. But nice to meet you all.
Wonderful to have you, Victor, and you and Rachel may have some networking you can do together. So
yes, I think so. Thank you.
Jamie?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
You can.
I'm Jamie. I don't work with any programs. I was actually referred to you guys. I used to be homeless, and I'm not anymore, but I do know a lot of homeless people. I could probably give you some insight of what their needs are or what they're looking for. And so I just kind of tuned in to see what this is all about, I guess.
Welcome very much. We look forward to hearing from you, and your resources will be really important for us to hear. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Shalana?
Good morning. I haven't been at this meeting for quite some time now. I am Shalana with Catholic Community Services Family Housing Network. Just got promoted to coordinated entry, and hopefully I'll be able to attend these meetings going forward.
We look forward to having you here. Thanks for coming. It's wonderful. So if you haven't introduced yourself and you'd still like to say your name and what you're connected to, the chat is available for that. And if you'd like people to contact you about any particular resources you either have or are looking for, that's a good place to do it as well. Rob, I'll give it back to you.
Thank you, Rosemary, and thank you for kicking off the meeting this morning, as always. So I wanted, before we get into this week on the streets, I wanted to share some changes that I've had to make with our agenda this morning. I see Dennis mentioned in the chat that he was hoping to hear from Heather Moss this morning regarding Pierce County Village proposal. I wanted to let folks know that I heard back from Heather last night that she had something come up that caused a conflict with the meeting time this morning. So she's unable to join us for this morning's presentation. I'm going to see if we can get her here, her or someone else from her staff here to talk about the Pierce County Village proposal next week. So more to come on that. But what that means is that our agenda is going to shift around. So I hope folks will bear with me. We're going to end up talking this morning in the first hour about an update and potential path forward on the City of Tacoma camping ban. Garrett's going to give us an update on the Pierce County right-of-way funding, how the right-of-way funds will be used that are coming from the state. And then we'll do our breakouts before we get into the government updates. So just wanted to give people that heads up. If you're here specifically for the Pierce County Village proposal presentation, that won't be happening this morning. However, the link that went out to the website that has all the information about the proposal should be in your email if you're on the mailing list. And I do urge folks to take a look at that, see if you have any questions that you want to pose either to Heather or another staff member when that presentation does happen, hopefully next Friday. So without further ado, let's move on to our regular standing item that we do every week, and that is talking about what's happening this week on the streets. This is an opportunity for folks to share what changes they're seeing on the streets, changing needs, trying to connect people to the resources of the 64 people who are in this room today, so that we can move forward and advocate for folks who are currently homeless. So feel free to raise your hand. I'll call on folks and we can get started. Bob, I see your hands up first.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. Good morning, everybody. First of all, a big shout out to Jeff Rogers and Devin Isaacson. They were able to provide us with a sort on the Youth Point in Time HMIS list. Good news, bad news. The good news, in a sense, is that we only had 3 youth from our area codes in HMIS. I think the regular team was going to call them, and as well, I passed the information on to communities and services. They are going to make sure they're already in contact or will be through the schools with those 3. The other side of that is that tells us out of the probably 230 youth we know are homeless out on the KP and in Gig Harbor, not very many of them are in HMIS, and we've got a long way to go. So very informative. This week we got calls, very unusual to get calls from the community saying, hey, we saw some homeless people in Gig Harbor this week, and we saw 6 in Gig Harbor, and we saw a couple more on the KP. It's really good to have the community to call us and let us know. We went out to try to talk to them, could not locate them, but they're good indication, and these were new folks, that we're starting to get some more transient activity and people coming into this area who have not been able to get services or want to be left alone in other areas. So, and then quickly, TRM's program is really hitting high speed. They helped us yesterday. We found a new homeless gentleman last week. They were able to take him in yesterday to get his ID, get him set up with a shower, more clothes. We're getting hopefully his program in place to get him housing. Happened very quickly, and it's very rewarding. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Others with updates of what they're seeing on the streets this week. I saw Richard shared in the chat about the sweep this morning at 21st and J Street. Richard, anything you want to share on over the mic?
Nothing. I'll head out shortly. I'll stay on the call for a bit and try and take it in the car, but was in touch with several people yesterday. Probably the only unusual thing that happened at 21st and Yakima was on Wednesday, either a city person or a contractor pulled over, identified 3 tents as being abandoned. The people that lived in them had walked away for a while, and they said, oh, well, we have to take these now. So they ripped up 3 tents, threw them in a vehicle or a truck, and drove away. So when I got there, the guy was fairly agitated. He just lost his 3 tents where he and his mother were staying. And I happened to have a couple of tents, but that was a little unusual. No notice, no procedure, just the taking of tents. I guess a couple of other things out there probably too. A couple of encampments that either self-cleared or moved on to new places. So there's quite a lot of change going on out on the street. Down at 25th and Puyallup, for example, there were maybe eight tents, and all of a sudden they were gone. Similarly at 47th and just off South Tacoma Way, one of the rougher small encampments has now cleared itself. How and why, I don't know. And so we're just sort of watching as we're out, seeing some encampments doubling or tripling in size, new ones just blooming up overnight, because there's a lot of people being displaced right now, and just a lot of people being displaced. So we're seeing a lot of activity, a lot of movement out there, and we're stocking up on cold weather supplies, hand warmers, blankets, and just getting ready for the change of season. So thank you.
Thanks, Richard. And Jessica, I see your note in the chat that you're also seeing the same thing with people shifting away from areas that they believe are going to be cleaned up. Yeah, I'm expecting we're going to see a lot more of that.
Yeah, I've been asking people, like in the Spanaway area, that I see move without being told to move necessarily, and they were saying that, you know, word is just kind of spreading that these cleanups are coming, and it's kind of like, it's terrifying because sweeps that are coming from Tacoma, everybody's now coming over here, and so now there's just an influx of people over here, but now they're doing cleanups over here at the same capacity. So I don't know what that's going to turn into. I'm really excited though to hear about this village idea. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah, and that's another good prompt to take a look at the proposal itself on the website. The links that are in the email I sent yesterday. You can get a sense of the phased approach that they want to take with that village project. Anyone else who wants to share what they're seeing on the streets right now? All right, well, I'm sure the needs are going to change as the weather changes here today. People are going to suddenly be dealing with everything being wet. So thankfully it's not going to get drastically cold soon, but boy, if you're wet and you can't get dry, it can sure feel cold real fast. Thank you to everyone who's doing outreach and doing what you can to help folks who are out there. So let's move on to our next item in the agenda, and that is related. I'm glad to see Maureen is still here. I know that many of you last week talked quite a bit about the City of Tacoma's camping ban and the 10-block buffers and 200-foot buffers around streams and waterways. And Maureen did some thinking that she thought she would like to share with the group today about what the coalition might be able to do moving forward. So Maureen, would you like to share?
I would, and if you would bring up that list.
Yeah, I will.
Because I got on the call, but that's about it. And we know nobody wants to see my desktop. Oh, I did clear off 50 items this morning. So I brought this to the steering committee Wednesday, Coalition Steering Committee Wednesday. And as some of you I've been talking with, but I've been also just reading and listening and thinking. So the coalition itself, one of the things about chemo is my voice will all of a sudden go up. It's weird, but totally out of my control. The coalition itself is a network. It's not a legal organization in any way. And we're right now, unless things change dramatically in the last year, We do vote on Friday mornings on issues sometimes if the coalition's going to take a public stance. But for the most part, it's people coming together, sharing information and trying to help everybody move forward, see if we can't get people experiencing homelessness housed, and if we can't keep staff, people, and volunteers with the support that they need. And thanks to the electeds who are on this call right now too. So what I tried to do is separate out actions that individual coalition members, individual coalition organizations either are taking or might want to take. And that's a laundry list that's not ready yet. From what the coalition itself could take, that it seemed to me were non-controversial and that might help us all move forward. So I'm just going to go through these, though some of you are on your phones, I know maybe can't see. Thank the 3 council members who voted against the ordinance. Write the council that several legal organizations are watching the implementation for any constitutional violations. And we added a line in the steering committee about reminding council that it's budget season and we do not have enough shelter beds. Number 3, provide a space, a virtual space, if you will, for members to share what they are doing as individuals or organizations. We already have the Friday meeting structure. We have the listserv with over 700 people. We have some other listservs. We have the Safe Sites for All Monday meetings at noon, and we have our website, as well as Safe Sites has a website. Number 4, provide regular briefings so that all outreach and all providers, whether funded or volunteers, know what a constitutional violation might look like. Number 5, request regular implementation briefings from neighborhood and community services and the Tacoma Police. They're charged with implementing the ordinance. Number 6, invite unsheltered people to share their experiences, make their needs known. Number 7, invite coalition members to serve as points of contact, just to keep track of or link people who are doing similar things together. I'm suggesting keep Rob Huff in the loop. I'm not suggesting these points of contact have any power or authority, simply listening and connecting. And the 3 that I thought of were the relationship with the City of Tacoma, relationship with people who are living unsheltered, and the relationship with neighborhoods. So that's where I left it, and the steering committee thought we should talk about it briefly this morning and see what kind of feedback people might have.
Yeah, so we thought we would open the floor to a bit of a conversation about this. We will be talking, well, we'll be doing a review of the breakout conversation that took place in a related topic later in today's meeting, but anybody have additional ideas that they think we should be pursuing? This would be a great time to share them. There is one other point that I do want to bring up, and it's a request from that was made during this week by Zev Cook. Zev reached out asking if the coalition could take a stand and request that the City of Tacoma postpone any additional sweeps until after November 14th, which is the effective date of the camping ban. Zev, do you want to, I see you have your hand up, give us a little bit of context, and then I'll come back and offer some context about what our stance on sweeps has been all along.
Yeah, I mean, I think a specific request to delay sweeps until the ban kicks in makes sense right now, since you don't want to sweep people out of one camp, have them move a few blocks to another spot that's still within the affected zone, and then the ban kicks in on the 14th, and then they get moved again after that. So if we could delay sweeps to when the ban kicks in on the 14th, I think that would provide some meaningful consistency to people's lives.
Yeah, thank you for the request, Zev. And Teresa, I see your hand up.
So I see the problem that Zev is talking about right here in our neighborhood. And I think the other thing I would suggest we say to the city is, if the sweeps go forward, that people who are doing the sweeps actually provide a packet to the people they are telling who need to move, and that packet needs to include a map of the intentional exiting of everyone who's homeless from the downtown core, and that map that they have given, and it needs to be more accurate than the one that we have seen already. It needs to have actual streets on it, and we need to be able, a person who's trying to find another place to stay needs to be able to see it. There's some confusion about another map that is being created that has the actual shelters that exist on it. I don't think that is as much of a deal as what are the government properties that are available for camping in these areas outside the buffer zone. And I have been asking for that for a long time. I think there's an issue with this. I mean, the city's not going to want to direct people to camp in another space, but we still need that information so that we can direct people to spaces. I don't expect the city to step out and say, hey, why don't you go camp on the courthouse lawn? They're not gonna do that. But if we have the information about where government property, whether it's federal, state, local, is, we can give people that information without the problems that the city would have giving it to them. So that seems like a bare minimum. Give them the map of where the buffer zone is going to be, no matter what, whether they delay it or don't delay it. That needs to be a part of anything, anytime there's a sweep anywhere.
Thanks, Teresa. So the context I wanted to add is that a year ago, we voted as a coalition to send a statement to the city council, essentially saying that we don't believe there should be sweeps within the city of Tacoma at all. And we've been using that letter throughout the last year as the city resumed doing its sweeps, following the break that they were doing during the worst of the COVID pandemic. There has been some effort made to revise that letter. And what I would say is that I would be happy to work with both Ed Jacobs, who I saw on the call a little bit earlier, and with Maureen to do a revised letter that would go to the council, restating and just revising our language around the opposition to sweeps and the lack of, oh, and I see Jay's also offering to help with the letter. So if a small team of folks want to put their names in the chat to be involved in revising the letter, I do think making a request to the city that they cease sweeps would be a good thing to do. I do worry a little bit about setting a date because it gives tacit approval, could be inferred from that. So I really don't want to do that. But I definitely understand where you're coming from, Zev. Also, especially in light of the weather that's incoming and the fact that folks are going to be dealing with not inclement weather, but just the normal fall and winter weather coming, and we don't need to just keep moving people over and over. They shouldn't be moved at all. So I do see a number of folks offering in the chat to help with that effort. And if anyone else wants to put their name in the chat, please do. I can see this chat after the meeting, and we'll work with folks to do a revised letter. I don't know that we need to do a formal vote to send the revised letter to the council. I'd just kind of like to get a sense if people want to give me a thumbs up to move forward with this team of folks to revise the letter and send it, then we'll move forward from there. All right, I'm seeing a number of thumbs on my screen. Thank you. And I see your email there, Jerome. Thank you. So more work to come, and I do urge folks to, as Maureen said, you know, there are a number of organizations looking at potential legal remedies. There's a lot of work to do to make sure that we document what happens to people when this camping ban actually takes effect, if it takes effect. So more to come, but don't want to belabor it here today. Maureen, you wanted to say something else?
Yeah, just as a final, we're revising the sweeps letter. And we're also sending the letter about the watch out, the legal organizations are watching. Those are
That'll be part of it.
I just want to make sure those are two separate entities.
Okay.
In part because I know of one lawsuit that's moving forward. I think several people are involved in it. And they believe they have a client that they can bring before November 14th. They're going to try and get, I guess, an injunction. Jennifer, help me out, to stop the implementation. But, and I guess if anybody has any feedback for Rob or me, to put in the chat on this idea of, should there be a point of contact on various key relationships, so that we're gathering information in real time and real ideas that look like they're going to work, and that maybe we can bring those points of contact could bring the best of them to a Friday meeting, or something like that, or convene a meeting just on that particular topic kind of stuff. So
yeah, I'm happy to pull together like a mind map style resource map so that we know who's involved in doing what. So I will drop my email into the chat, and please feel free to reach out. And if there's information that we believe we should share publicly, I can very easily put together a simple web page to share that information. So I like the idea, Maureen, and let me put my email in the chat.
thanks, everybody.
All right. So thank you, everyone, for your patience with this issue. Obviously, it's not going away anytime soon, but we need to move on with our meeting and our revised timeline for the meeting. So Garrett, would you have time now to talk about the right-of-way funding and how Pierce County wants to use it?
I do have time right now, Rob. Thank you. Let me get myself organized, though.
You get organized quicker than I do, I'll tell you.
I put a PowerPoint together. All right, thank you all. I'm going to talk today about some new funding that I've mentioned briefly, but we finally have the go-ahead to talk about the details of it. So this is sort of new. I haven't briefed the county council about it. So this is, kind of in companion to a news release we sent out, and we're just going to be pushing information out, but I kind of wanted to get you all in the know. Today, I'm going to talk about where this money came from. I'm going to talk about what resources we're putting together because of it. We're talking about how folks get access to those resources, and then next steps. Hopefully I'll go quick and you can ask me some questions later on. This is an initiative by the governor and the legislature. It came in a budget proviso, and funding is shaking out to be $35 million in our first fiscal year, and then 10 million in years after that. And the first fiscal year was a mix of capital, right? So you can buy buildings or remodel things, and operation money. And then following years is mostly operation money. And so we've got a budget put together based around that. This is the kind of project I like. It has very long-term funding is the expectation. It's put into the budget as something that needs to be explicitly removed by legislature. So they can definitely do that. But if they don't pay any attention to it, it'll keep going year after year. And our solution to people living in encampments, in my opinion, is to build shelter and permanent housing programs. And this funding does exactly that. So the goal from the legislature and the governor was we have people living in state-owned public rights-of-way. And by that, they mean places that land owned by the state of Washington next to our highways. So Interstate 5, 167, Highway 7, 512. And they wanted to return those to the uses they were designed for. And to do that, they decided they would not simply push people away, but they would find places for them to go. And so this money was a request from them to the county. They asked 5 counties to be involved. Thurston, right down south with Olympia, us in Pierce County, King County, Seattle, Thurston County, right up North Everett, and then Spokane County. And we put a proposal together and they liked it. So we've been working on that. This is way too much information and I'll drop it into the chat so you have it. Hopefully it'll be up on social media on the county site at some point, but we put together a variety of things. The biggest thing we did was we put about $24 million into the purchase of a hotel in Lakewood. So that'll be 83 units of shelter for the next 3 years, converting over into permanent supportive housing. And that's a newer hotel that's an all suites hotel. So they have kitchens, right, kitchenette, but I think it's a full fridge and range. And so that's exciting. And then other capital is going in to build a tiny house village. But we have a really neat variety of different shelter projects. So I'm just going to fly through these. Comprehensive Life Resources has been doing a house-based shelter program. And so they're going to expand that with this funding. So they rent houses, individual rooms are then used as shelters. So they're, 6 people, 8 people, I don't know, right? So it's a much smaller environment. So that seems like it'll be a really good option for some folks. Helping Hand House is using some of their existing kind of shelter capacity and their hotel basing program and an expansion to serve 5 households with children. They only work with families and pregnant women. Low Income Housing Alliance is actually the agency that was funded to purchase the hotel, and they're also constructing a new tiny house village. And I'm not sure on the location on that yet. We've had, anyway, I'm not sure where we are right now. Catholic Community Services is setting aside some beds in Nativity House. Homeward Bound is going to set up an RV safe parking site. So that'll be 20 RVs. Not sure on the location there yet. City of Fife is putting funding from this into their jobs program, but also creating a hotel-based shelter like Puyallup was operating. So that's 20 units of shelter that's in rented hotel rooms. And the really fun part about this is that, so that's shelter, and I mentioned permanent housing. So the vast majority of those shelters, when clients are enrolled in that shelter program, they are also enrolled in rapid rehousing at the same time. And that's hopefully going to create some throughput. So we, and some and good outcomes for people experiencing homelessness. So we're hoping, so we're going to have around 300 beds probably, right? Some of those shelter units, right? 265 units. Some of them will be for couples or families, so they'll be serving more. So around 300 beds. We're anticipating serving around 500 folks in a year. And the rapid rehousing is really going to create about 173 exits to permanent housing. Another part, and that's just, 175. It's the problem when you do math and things like this, you come out with odd numbers that make it look like you're much more sophisticated than you are. The other really interesting thing that we were able to work into this funding is that a lot of those people living in state public rights of way are chronically homeless, and rapid rehousing is not going to be a solution for them. So we have the ability for rapid rehousing. So that's an intervention where basically we cover rent for 6 months or a year until households are able to be self-sufficient. We have money in here to continue that as a permanent supportive housing option, basically. So we can continue funding for the rapid rehousing, and we're buying beds for operations in the Community First Village. So we'll do that for a while, and we can continue that right with the funding, or we can move those into the new Community First Village, which you would have learned about today, but schedules being schedules, that didn't happen. But anyway, there's that. So basically, there's shelter, there's rapid rehousing to help folks become independent, and then there's permanent supportive housing for the households where that's not going to be long-term possible. And obviously that the Candlewood shelter. Okay, I'm going to go super fast now because I'm probably behind.
You're doing fine.
Oh, good. Eligibility is so weird for this. So we just have to think, what's that? Rising tides float all boats. So access to these resources is limited in a way. However, it's more capacity in our system, and I think it helps everybody. So in order to be eligible for this, what happens is WSDOT, Washington State Department of Transportation, works with our cities and identifies encampment locations that are going to receive attention from this program. Then our contracted, or just our nice outreach providers go out into those encampments, and they basically do this enumeration. So people that are living in the state public right of way in the encampments identified by WSDOT are interviewed, and they get placed on a by name list, essentially, as a way to think about it. Enrolled in a program in HMIS is the technical bit, and then they're eligible for this program, and that's the only way. And at that point, then they're going to be offered a variety of those different shelter-based options, right? If nativity house and rapid rehousing is what they want, then we'll help them get there. If it would be more appropriate to be in the hotel-based shelter, then that happens. And then we work on rapid rehousing and on permanent supportive housing. You don't have to go into shelter to get the rapid rehousing, but that's kind of how this system's structured. Is kind of leans towards that. And then there's some things that are occurring that WSDOT cares about, right? They began a reclamation phase, right? Where they're, where people are no longer living in the encampment, and they are going to, clean the encampment. And then their goal is to maintain it in a way that it doesn't become an encampment again. And again, that feels icky to say in front of all of you, right? That sort of, environmental design and all that. But I really think this is a neat way to appropriately fund the resources you need to help people move out of an encampment into better situations. So we're finalizing contracting with all the providers. Contracting's been accelerated, and it's kind of goofy. Going directly from the state to providers. That's why our county council hasn't heard about it, is because it's not going through the state and through our county council yet, because we take a long time to do contracting. So they're going to contract directly with the state through the end of June, and then picking up on July 1, that's all going to go through the county. And except for the work that's going on in Fife, that's going directly to Fife. Our projects are going to be launching. There's some dates that are targets for when they launch, so you can kind of see it's a slow kind of rollout. One thing we also added was our ability for our programs that have a slower rollout of the facility, like we don't get possession of the Candlewood until January. We need to build a tiny house village. There's actually hotel rooms of subsidies available, so that if they get staffing, they can actually rent hotel rooms and put folks in the hotel room until the tiny house village opens, in which case they would move them from the rented hotel room to the tiny house village. And I'm excited about it. I'd be happy to take some questions. I see Mr. Kirk, you've got your hand up.
Yes, I have a question here. On the suite hotels, are those going to be for multiple people, or will those be for, or will it just be one person, or will they put multiple people into those suites?
That is a good question for Lehigh that's operating it. My modeling is assuming singles and couples. So I do not know if they have an intention to do double occupancy. We typically don't in our permanent supportive housing and in our shelter non-congregate spaces, but it's possible. But yeah, that would be an excellent question for next time Lehigh's here. Ms. Hall.
You may or may not be able to answer this because Leah is not here, but who's going to be referring to the new motel? Because I'm able to refer to Aspen Court. I just didn't know if that's going to be a referral thing through like the hot team or the heel team again and Lakewood PD, or if you knew.
If people are living in a designated state public right-of-way encampment, when it gets enumerated, basically when they get added to the by name list, once you're on that list, you are in. So if your outreach team was doing that work to do the enumeration, which we'll probably be asking you to at some point, then you would be the referral agency. If you bumped into somebody and looked in HIMAS and saw they had one of those encounters and were on the list, like basically once you've been identified that way, WSDOT considers you theirs.
Awesome.
And then these resources will continue to be available.
Okay, fantastic.
So Garrett, just so you know, both Joe and John are here from Lehigh. And you probably missed it in the chat, but on your one slide where you mentioned who's running the hotels, you said the suites. You said Lehigh, but the slide said Low Income Housing Alliance. So it should be changed to Institute before you share it.
Thank you. That's my absolute.
Yeah, Joe or Josh, did you guys want to? Yeah,
I was going to say there actually is an
would
alliance,
work
but
for the
they'd be
alliance.
surprised to know they're operating those programs.
Yeah, I
That's
won't
okay.
tell. I won't tell my boss. Yeah.
So I think the question, Garrett and Alfred, was the question if this program is serving singles and couples? I missed it because I was.
The question was basically if we were going to be serving multiple people like in a room. So usually with setup like this, it would be singles or couples, as compared to like because it's not a Congress shelter, so it won't be like friends or multiple individuals staying into one unit. It would be like either single or couples.
Right. So yeah, so we do. So this program, both programs are going to serve singles and couples, and people with pets as well. Is that? I think that answers it, right? Was there any other question on that?
The referral agency, I know referral agency was another question. And, you know, depending on if it's going to be like the other sites in Tacoma and how the funding works and so on, but I'm assuming it would probably be like, for instance, the HEAL team. I know that, you know, and I know each one has kind of different ones. Six and Orchard has more different individuals. And of course, we work with any agency to try to get individuals in, but usually there's like a large capacity. And it's usually like the Homeless Engagement Alternatives Liaison is a big one. They're the ones that go out into the encampments and get the referrals and get them into the site. So I would assume that would be the large agency. And then, so if this one's in Lakewood,
I kind of described that, Joe. This is a little different. You have, in order to get access to that resource, you have to be identified during one of these enumerations. I'm just using that word enumeration. I'm giving it special meaning, but no one else is, right? But so when an outreach team goes to a designated encampment and the individual's there, it's almost like there's an end date too, right? Like, so they go to the encampment, they get everybody on the list. If somebody moves to that encampment the next day, not on the list, right? It's only folks that are there when they designate the site. So it's a pretty scripted process as designated by the Department of Commerce and WSDOT.
And thank you, Gary. Your presentation was very helpful on this, so I appreciate it. Let Joe and I know if there's any other questions. We're here.
Cool. Dr. Power Drudas.
So the obvious thing, I mean, it's really obvious that with the combination of the buffer zone and the resources that are going to be available for people who are camped at places that are in the right-of-way, we're going to have a massive movement toward right-of-way spaces. And I'm wondering what are we going to do to serve the people who are going to flow there? Because, I mean, obviously, if I were out there, that's where I would flow.
I have no answer to that. I find this type of funding lovely to receive. It was a massive gift from the legislature to do some really neat projects with some of the stupidest eligibility criteria I could possibly imagine.
Well,
Right.
as long as the enumeration is ongoing until they're all, it sounds like they're going to do site hardening as they sweep the places essentially, but they're sweeping with some actual resources, which is a refreshing thing. I just think we should, as a group, and the city and the county should be looking at how are we going to meet the needs of the people who are going to end up there in the interim.
Yeah, and to even add one more wrinkle to this, like the 84th and Hosmer, there's a significant encampment there next to I-5. There's a chain link fence that runs through the middle of that encampment. If you are on one side of the fence, you are on WSDOT property and eligible for this program. If you're on the other side of the fence, you are not on WSDOT property, and so you are not eligible. And that's Commerce and WSDOT being very careful about the mandate they were given through the budget proviso in the legislation. And so at some point, I'm hoping they get clarification from the governor's office and the legislature. Is that really what you wanted us to do? But they're conservatively reading that. So there's some really odd things about this that I think will be a challenge as we work to, use existing resources for this initiative, right, for the non-WSDOT side of the encampment and the other, and how all that, I don't know. So it's challenging anytime you're serving a special population, and this time it's strangely geographically tied. I don't know how much more time we have there.
Section
Rob.
up. Yeah, Jessica, you haven't asked a question on this yet. Do you want to wrap us up? And you're muted right now.
I did have one more question. I mean, I did ask a question, but I had a question for the village as well, but this kind of ties into that. Is one concern that I have is staffing. We're not staffed right now as it is anywhere fully, and so I'm just wondering if people have ideas about how to pull some people in, we for these new projects that we're going to be starting.
I'll let someone else take that because I just pretend like that's not a real problem.
I will
say, in my defense, I funded these at the higher end of what we fund projects like this. Like WSDOT kind of gave us free hand, and so I said, okay, well, I'm going to fund it as if everybody were paid a living wage.
Great, fantastic. That's good to hear.
It's hard to implement that as a large organization, right? Like that's the other part. You know what I mean? Like if you're Catholic Community Services with 3,000 employees, right? You can't take one funding stream and not sort of upset your ability to, to function within your contract. So, and I'm not pretending that doesn't exist.
Good point. Okay. Well, I just want to throw it out there because I was going to bring it up with the village idea as well. I'm just like, I'm sure that people think about it, but nobody ever really talks about it. And I've brought it up for the last few years at a couple different meetings, just throwing it out there because everybody wants to complain about the homelessness problem, but we don't have enough staff to even cover it. And I'm not talking about us. I'm talking about, the other people.
$10 million of operational money every year. And the vast majority of that goes right into case manager salaries. Right.
Fantastic.
Like
that's great.
Right. I mean, it's like King County put, 1.4 million of their 10 million operations into administrative overhead. We have put $200,000 into county administrative overhead, right? Like our goal is money in the hands of people directly serving our, most vulnerable.
Fantastic.
Yeah, Jessica. So I want to mention just kind of some. We're kind of exploring that too, like how to how to hire folks, how to hire up and everything, and get folks in. But I will say that just the facts that we have, it's going to be 24/7 staffed, and there will be definitely a case management element and really robust case management. We have a lot of folks that are going to be living here. So it's the 65 tiny houses, but if you add the couples and everything, it gets up to 80, plus people. And we're working with folks like Garrett to make sure that it's robustly funded, so we can actually get the staff that we need. we do have an HR department that is just finding all, I think all nonprofits are dealing with, hiring issues, and really every, like all across the economy, right? But especially nonprofits. And we have an HR department that's finding creative ways of, looking for new people to hire and get out the word about our open positions.
I'd like to speak about that. This is Anita from Lehigh, Aspen Court.
Go for it.
Okay, so oddly enough, it's something I was thinking about this morning and pretty much every day when I'm here. Everyone is understaffed. And one of the things, and it may have been brought up in the past, I'm not sure, but I'd like to look at if we are allowed to have paid internships from any of the universities or colleges or folks that are interested in going into this field of assisting people. Is there any way that, I don't know if we're allowed to have paid internships because of HIPAA or because of what we do here, if they have to actually be an employee, but is that something we've ever addressed or looked at or opened up for discussion?
We've had paid internships before at Lehigh, and I think there'd be interest in that. There'd be interested in finding a variety of ways of getting the help that we need. They wouldn't be necessarily filling like official positions like the village operations manager, but maybe it'd be like supplementing, right? Like supplementing the support for the staff. So there is a lot of interest in, we have done that before and we could do it again.
Yeah, and the greatest thing from that is then you pull that person who's passionate and kind of understands a little bit about the position and the organization, and you can pull them from, when you have the opening and see if they want to apply, and then you've got already an established rapport and a relationship.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, thank you for mentioning that. I think that makes sense to explore.
Thank you.
All right. So we have a couple more hands up, and then we probably need to move on to the rest of the agenda, but I do appreciate this conversation. So Jay, what do you have to add?
Hopefully you guys can hear me, but I strongly suggest peer support programs.
You say peer support programs?
Yeah. I may have to put in information when I get home. I'm on the bus right now, or outside right now, but peer support would be helpful if you guys would nail down some programs where you're hiring straight out of the group of people that you are starting to house. A lot of us who have been homeless had regular jobs beforehand. A lot of us did construction work. Some of us have licensing and CAD and all kinds of things that could help in these situations. But I'll put it in chat. Thank you.
And Patricia, you wanted to make a comment as well?
I wanted to revisit the empowering programs, and this was like with Lehigh with Josh, like there are other programs to uplift those that are unhoused, and Lehigh does traditionally use like AmeriGroup, Vista, all these other programs, but we can develop them to be put in supportive and like empowering programs also with like workforce development. There's ways to do that. So thank you.
Yeah, actually, could I make a quick comment on that? So we have, thank you for mentioning that. That reminds me, we have two things I want to share. First of all, we hire folks who are, residents, clients in our programs, and many people that came with, lived experience. So we have a number of, we do that, but we have a very robust number of our staff in our villages. I would say probably something like a third of our staff, come from lived experience, and that's very important to have that perspective, because they bring a lot of value and experience to the program of how to work with folks who are unhoused. And then as well, we have AmeriCorps members. People like to say AmeriCorps volunteers, but they're not. They get a little stipend. It's not much. But I always try to make sure that people know they're AmeriCorps members is the term I use. And we have through the Jesuit Volunteer Corps is one example, and Vista's another example. But we have them right now actually helping out our staff working with our programs. And it's a really, I highly recommend the AmeriCorps program, if, you know, for folks who are interested in exploring that, because it's a way, it's for somebody to give a year of service to basically helping a nonprofit is a really big deal. So to do it, you know, they kind of do it at a low pay, but they're trying to kind of build their career and their you know, their educational prospects and all that. So anyway, so that's just a couple examples of some of the programs that some of the ways that we do. We get some support for our programs. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. And Leo, why don't you wrap us up on this topic?
Great, thanks. So I just want to remind everyone that anyone seeking career development services in the greater Pierce County network does not necessarily need to be receiving services from the Tacoma Rescue Mission or any of our partner sites. That's what I have a team here at TRM for, so I'd love to connect with anyone. And then to the questions in regards to internships, for those who are looking to do that as a staffing supplement, if you will, in some of the like programs around Pierce County, please connect with me. My email's in the chat. I'd love to connect you to some of our partners that we do grab and have internships with, both on a collegiate level and then again also on a workforce development level. Because unfortunately, I'm only so big as a partner agency and I can't house all the interns that are seeking placement, and there are a lot. We have numerous individuals who are dedicated to this work and wanting to get into these fields, and they're looking for internships. So please connect with me. I'd love to help connect that wheel. And Rob, thank you for the opportunity.
I'll reach out
of course,
to Leo.
yeah.
Thank you.
And Garrett, thank you for providing the update and information. Great that you can officially talk about this stuff now. All right, so let's move. I was going to do the breakout during the first hour of the meeting, but you know what? We're now in the second hour of the meeting, and I want to honor our commitment to carve out time for government agencies to give quick updates. So why don't we run through those now, and then we'll move into the review of last week and have this week's breakout. So let's get started. I didn't see if we have anyone from the City of Tacoma on the call, but wanted to open the opportunity. Anyone from the City of Tacoma? Matthew, there you are.
Hey everyone, good morning. My name is Matthew Jorgensen from the City of Tacoma. I work for the Neighborhood and Community Services Department. Just want to give you folks some updates. So fortunately, next month we're projected to open 2 more of our shelter sites. The one at 35th and Pacific, and then the project at Brotherhood Rise. So that's combined going to bring an additional 85 beds online. We had obviously the power delay with 35th and Pacific because the TPU didn't want to tie into the same transformer as South Sound 911. But we're projected to open that site mid-November. And then as Richard mentioned earlier, the encampment between 19th and 21st on Yakima is starting to be removed today. And then as far as NOFAs go, just as a reminder, the city issued an RFP on September 29th for programs or projects to be funded from $2.2 million from the city's general fund. And those applications are due on November 1st. Proposals must align with council priorities. And as you all know, housing and homelessness is one of those priorities. We've already held 2 pre-proposal meetings, and the recordings of those meetings, as well as questions and answers, can be found at tacomapurchasing.org.
Thank you for that update, Matthew.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying the acronym.
Yeah, that's okay. I remember being a city employee. You live in acronym land. Yeah. Thank you. Any quick questions for Matthew before we move to the next? All right, not seeing any. If you do have any, please use the chat to drop those in. Any updates from Pierce County Human Services?
I'm here today, Rob, on behalf of Jeff.
Oh, okay. Hi, Delmar.
Good morning, everyone.
Great.
It's so many amazing faces, so many familiar faces this morning on the call. Just brief update. I do know that yesterday our particular homeless team helped facilitate the youth point in time count. kudos and shout out to the YAB, the Youth Action Board, over at Reach for really assisting with making sure that that was as successful as can be. We're also moving forward with our supplemental COC process in order to get those particular funds awarded. Yeah, we're still just kind of in the midst of that. Let's see here. Any other updates? Trying to think. I know that Garrett knocked out the right-of-way stuff. Thank you, Mr. Nyland, for really giving an in-depth look at that. It's exciting that we can now kind of talk about that. And then, another thing I wanted to mention to everyone is that we have been in partnership with a group out of Seattle called 501 Commons. I think that they've actually even been on the coalition before, and they're here to help us with some capacity building, with onboarding new agencies and even some of the existing agencies that we have. So there's more to come with that. Our team has been working with them kind of behind the scenes to set up how we want to roll out their services. So we're extremely excited about that. More to come in the near future with that. So we don't really have any other NOFAs that are out. I do know that we have some eviction prevention NOFAs that are soon to come. We also have some shelter NOFAs that are soon to come as well. So always lots going on.
That bad boy's out, Delmar.
Oh, is it out today?
Yep. Yeah. Not going to mention the $14 million NOFA, huh?
There we go, right? So, yeah, I did know, Valerie did mention that to me, that it was going to be out. So, yeah, a lot of exciting things going on here at the county, hopefully to better the community.
Thank you for the update, Delmar, and we'll look forward to hearing from you here in a few minutes about the block project.
Absolutely.
Can I talk about this shelter NOFA, Rob?
Yeah, you can.
Okay. I could talk next week. So we just posted a notice of funding availability. This is much more like a request for proposals, really. We have a number of buckets of money that can be used independently, or they can be used all together for a mega project. It's currently about 13 million. It's possible it increases by another 3.5 million. Things were in the works, so that may happen, that may not happen. Some of it's restricted, so some of the funding has to be used for a non-congregate medical respite facility. That's capital. Some of it needs to be used for a shelter operating outside the city of Tacoma. Some of it needs to be used for a thing called a shelter access hub, which is kind of a goal of what I've heard. That's a solution to lots of concerns about how to get people easier access to shelter. So take a look, and there is a bidding conference, and that's a great place to come and ask questions about it. But it's some capital and it's some operating money, and it's all together. And I'm really excited to see some neat projects come out of the community. Yeah. That's it. Just selling.
Thank you, Garrett. Yep. No, I appreciate it. Lots of selling going on these days. I do see a question in the chat from Kathy about whether the eviction prevention NOFA has posted yet. I haven't seen that post yet, but maybe someone from the county knows.
No, that has actually, it depends on what we're speaking of, which, yeah, because we've got a lot of things kind of in the works. So one eviction prevention has posted, and then we have another one that is soon to post.
Maybe folks can check that solicitations and competitive bids page that Garrett posted, and they'll find all of the NOFA goodness.
Yeah, you know what? That's a nice plug for that particular site. I encourage everyone, all of our providers, to really always keep an eye open for that. We also publish in the TNT, and then we also have various groups that we send. Our communications department and others will send those NOFAs out to. So yeah, we just have so many that are of these opportunities to come out. But yes, there is one eviction prevention that is out, and then we will be putting another one out in the future.
Thank you, Delmar.
Mm-hmm.
All right. anyone from the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department on the call that wanted to provide any updates this week?
I'm here if no one else is. Okay. Just a couple COVID updates. One, boosters are available for anyone 5+ now. Our COVID cases right now are still pretty low, but we're seeing the beginning of what could be a really big winter wave to match the last couple winters. We're very concerned about hospital capacity. If any of the shelters or anywhere else is interested in hosting a clinic, I can try and help you make that happen. Same for testing. Yeah, if you can get anyone on board with vaccine, it's looking real rough. Also a reminder that if someone tests positive, there are treatments available. We have a program called Test to Treat, where someone can get tested, have a virtual appointment with a doctor to get a prescription for one of these medications, and have it sent straight to a pharmacy. And there's a locator for Test to Treat on the Health and Human Services website. If you search COVID, COVID Test to Treat, it should pull up for you, and you can also always find that information on the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department website.
Thank
Janet?
you, Zoe. Yeah, go ahead, Jan.
Yes, good morning. Thanks, Zoe. Zoe, is there a way you can contact somebody in the communicable disease part and find out what the status of the syphilis outbreak is now? And maybe somebody could text you or email you the answer to that, because we have had an encampment site that did have an outbreak of syphilis. So that would be
Absolutely.
Thank you for doing that. And then the other thing I want folks to know is that the INQ number is still good. So the Test to Treat is great if folks can figure out how to get to Test to Treat. But it might be easier for some of the folks that we deal with to go to isolation and quarantine sites that the health department still has set up. And I'll put the phone number for the isolation and quarantine phone number. It's Monday through Friday, 8 until 5, although they only place between 8 to 4. And if you if you have tested somebody that you know is living either sheltered or unsheltered who has tested positive by, you taking one of your kits and there's a test, it might be easier for that person to go into an isolation or quarantine site than to do the test and treat. It's just another option. So I'll put that in the phone number.
Thank you, Jan. All right. Stacy, that is a fantastic question about where we are in the agenda. The answer is all over the place. We had to shuffle today's agenda, so we're actually going to shift now from our regular government updates to move into our breakout conversation. So, Timothy, would you like to share the summary from last week's breakout?
I'd be happy to. I just dropped the group discussion roundup into the chat, and as always, it's available at the website. Garrett uploads that every week, usually early. Really appreciate Maureen being here today. and the initiative that she took to put up a fairly actionable list of immediate responses that the coalition could take. From the discussion last week, I basically split the notes into more immediate actions to consider that people talked about and longer range ideas and issues of concern. So to start with the immediate actions to consider, a number of folks talked about putting together some kind of a map. There hasn't been a lot of discussion about that within the broader group. To me, it seems like something that kind of cuts both ways and should really be carefully considered before we put out anything like that. A lot of folks talked about the lawsuits that may be pending, and making sure that the city understands that. Maureen covered that pretty much in her points of action. Really good point about the threat of this increasing overdoses and folks being up to speed on naloxone and how to get access to that and use it. Of course, advocacy for getting new sites up as quick as they can, and concerned that it just takes too long to get new sites up based on the Veterans Village and how long that went on. Again, the problem with the map, where are people going to go, continuing to hit on that point, and also collecting survival supplies for distribution, because there's going to be a lot of movement and it's going to be necessary to get stuff into people's hands. If you scroll down to the bottom of the document, there's a plea for Tacoma Mutual Aid Collective that is looking for supplies and help to buy supplies. So if folks can help with that, that's something to look towards. Some other ideas and issues of concern that came up is that, again, we're not really looking at how the fentanyl and meth crisis is intersecting with street homelessness, and that's something to be looking at over the coming period. Concern how the camping ban is going to be traumatic to folks on the street, and the importance of outreach workers helping to prepare people for what's going to happen. Concern about vigilantism, that the ban is probably not going to be enforced to the extent that the city is talking about, and that may cause some frustration and backlash. And a related concern that this ban is going to push people out into new neighborhoods that aren't as used to seeing it, and that creating a backlash as well. So we'll see what happens with that, but something to be prepared for. Concern about the legal impacts of the ban and how we can assist people with that more proactively. And just continued general public education and education of elected officials on this. And, you know, just a statement of how difficult this is for folks that are sleeping outside, but also folks that are working with them. And, you know, that this has just been a challenge to maintaining good relationships with the city. So I think that's pretty much the overview, and hope that was helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Timothy. And again, Maureen, I don't think you were here when Timothy started, but he was really thankful. Mentioned your effort to pull together actions that we could take immediately. So appreciate that again.
Appreciate his notes. He gave me notes. So.
Perfect. So we want to hold a breakout conversation now. We're not going to be talking about the camping ban this time, but we're going to be talking about the fact that it's directly related to the camping ban. That how we wanted to ask the question for people to consider: how should the coalition help coordinate the response to cold weather this winter? We understand that Pierce County may be funding a small contract to a nonprofit that's yet to be awarded that we're aware of regarding coordination for inclement weather response. But we know that inclement weather tends to sneak up on our community, and we don't have that system in place right now. So we wanted folks to share what their thoughts were, so that we can integrate that and use the chat to create a response from the coalition. So why don't we spend the next 13 minutes in breakout conversations related to this? I am going to set folks up in rooms of 5 or 6 people. And if somebody could take notes and put them in the chat when you return, that would be great. We will be back here at 10:35. All right, so welcome back, everyone. I want to remind folks, whoever was taking notes in your breakout room, if you could paste those notes into the chat, that would be fantastic. And we're going to move on with our agenda and invite 3 of our friends to talk about the block project. Delmar is here from Pierce County Human Services, Teresa and Kevin Glacken-Coley back to talk with us about this project that he's involved with. So I'm not sure who's going to be queued up first here, so I'll just hand it over to the 3 of you.
Okay, well, good morning all, and it's nice to see some of you again and some of you for the first time. I am the director of Facing Homelessness in Seattle, and one of our projects is the Block Project, where we build ADAUs in residents' backyards in Seattle. We're in the process of finishing our 15th, and they are fully equipped small homes, 130 square feet interior, 230 square foot footprint, that contain a shower, a toilet, a sink, stovetop, bed, and then a front porch and others. I'm going to try and share a picture of it. And we've put these in, as I said, 15 backyards across Seattle, and are working on our next 3 to 4 for next year. We just this year partnered with a group called the NDN Collective, an indigenous-led coalition, national coalition, and sold them 2 kits. We build the homes in a shop in Georgetown, and they're panelized, and so they can be shipped like on a flatbed truck, and they're on their way now to Rapid City, South Dakota, where they'll be the first 2 homes in a village they're building for Native folks outside of Rapid City, South Dakota. And so as I try to figure out how to share a picture of that, a couple of weeks ago, Delmar, along with Heather Moss, and TP, Teresa Powerdew, just came up and saw the shop in one of the homes. And we thought we'd share a little bit about let them share their thoughts on how that might be translatable to Pierce County. So I'm just going to throw it over to them while I figure out how to share this photo.
Awesome. So first off, Kevin, we just want to
So Delmar, just so you know, something's up with your connection or with mine.
No, it's his.
It's his. For having us talk about an awesome experience. It got Director Moss and I out.
Yeah, Delmar, for some reason there seems to be an issue with your connection. But now I'm seeing you live on the screen, so maybe it's resolved itself.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, I was about to go to my phone. I'm sorry.
No, it got bad again.
Yeah, I've had some internet issues today, so my apologies.
No problem. Why don't we throw it over to Teresa until you can get on your phone.
All right, well, I'm going to share a couple of pictures because I know Kevin's going to share one, but this one has some live people in it. And are you there, my friends? Can you see this?
There you go. Yeah.
So this is the inside of the little home we toured. And you can see where Heather is standing. Right behind her is a very adequate bathroom, and there's a little stove and refrigerator and everything behind Delmar. And this is the other side of the room where there's the bed and the shelving. They really, for a small space, they really put in some storage, which was nice. And it's very light. All the decision about not putting a dark stain on and all of that really pays off. And here's the outdoor porch. Kevin, remind me of the name of the gentleman who was helping us.
Burns.
Say again?
Burns.
Okay, so this is the crew. There's Kevin, who I mentioned before, is a gift of the Jesuit Volunteer Corps. So I just wanted you to see, I didn't take a picture, a long shot away from the building. They're very kind of modernistic looking, but when you look at the shop, they are so well organized, and it is like putting together Tinker Toys or something. They have all the pieces. They've got a nice big space, and the people who are running the shop also, you might consider volunteering there because they let people come in and help with it. It's actually something constructive you can do beyond advocacy and, you know, handing out hand warmers. This is a real-time thing. So I was excited to be there and with that crew, and I hope others will take the tour at some point and see it too for yourselves.
Yeah.
Back to you, Kevin.
And I would say that thanks for sharing those photos because my system's not cooperating. I'll try one more time. No, it doesn't want to do it. That was the first 8 or 9 models were built much more hammer and nail on site. They took 4 weeks to put up on site. Now that we have the shop and we have a jig system where even someone like me who doesn't know how to do anything construction wise, it's very simple to have a group come in and help build the panels. They're built again as panels. Imagine IKEA on steroids. They can be delivered to a site, and after the foundation and all the plumbing and stuff has been installed, it can be put up on site in 4 days. It can also be taken apart and moved to another site, not the foundation, but the house itself. I would also say that the exterior of the house I was going to show is the upgraded. There was some that was some metal roofing and such, and now we use juniper that's salvaged from Oregon, where it's an invasive plant, and so it's part of our effort. We're in the process of being Living Building Challenge certified, so that the homes, you know, for our insulation we use wool. We don't use plywood. I mean, we use plywood rather than sheetrock because it lasts longer and it's not subject to being broken as easily. And they're self-contained homes. As I said, it's a home I would live in happily if I was by myself. They're small. Again, they're 130 square feet inside. As part of the process with the NDN collective, we did do some drawings of some larger homes, and because they're panelized, we can make them longer or we can make them wider. And so like with the wider model, you'd have a back area where it would be, so right now it's really just for a single adult, but if you make them bigger, you could have a couple of adults or an adult and a couple of kids. We haven't built those yet, but we have the drawings for them. So one of the things we're exploring is we don't envision ourselves becoming a huge organization building thousands of these and managing them, because we also do wraparound services. We have 2 social workers. We partner with other case management agencies. That's where our referrals come from. But that if somebody had some land and a desire to have a home like this or have a series of homes like this, we could provide the housing in a rather affordable way. Oh, look at that. Teresa, you're so good. That was, yeah, that's a nice picture of. And that's the work at the shop. So yeah, so it's a model of whether you do it on the, you know, one home in one person's backyard approach, or do a small village. It's I think our units cost $75,000, and that includes 10 solar panels on top, and so the home is net gain in electrical use. Compared to in Seattle, low income housing units about $300,000. Plus that takes 3 to 4 years to bring a project on scale, because you usually tend to do them big. We can turn out probably with our current capacity, we could turn out one of these kits a month. And so we plan to build 3 in Seattle, so we could conceivably build 9 and then sell them to an entity that wants to do that either individually or collectively. So as Teresa said, I really encourage folks to come up and see the shop. I'm happy to give tours. We go to homes that aren't, the resident isn't there. So it kind of depends on where we are right now. Like that home that Teresa and I and Delmar and Heather went to, a resident is moving in next week, but we usually have a home under construction. So what we can show in terms of the on-site depends on where we are in capacity.
Everyone, can you hear me?
Now we can.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, so you can hear me. I'll just make sure that my video is off. Most of you have seen me before anyway. I'm nothing to ride home about, so you don't need to see me. I just wanted to take a moment to really thank Kevin for having us. It was an incredible experience, and Teresa as well for joining us in the walkthrough that we did through the shop. And then, of course, actually touring one of the homes in the back of someone's residence there in Seattle. It was just, and just sharing while I have the bandwidth here on in my internet, that it was just an incredible, just a partnership in seeing how neighbors come together in order to have some really creative way of addressing a homeless situation that has really hit a lot of communities in our country. In particular there in Seattle, and it's something that we've, begun some discussion about here for Pierce County, and, perhaps there's more to come with that. Once, I know that Director Moss and I had a great time, driving to Seattle, and then of course in the conversation in the way home about how impressed we were with this model. And Kevin, it's just an amazing way for you to give back. I know that you're really, just entrenched in all of the work when it comes to homeless population and getting creative in ways to address it. And this is yet again just an incredible way. So yeah, for those that do have that opportunity, if you are in the Seattle area, South Seattle, really encourage you to hit Kevin up and see if he can, he and his team have the time to just take you through. Yeah, so if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer.
Great, thanks, Delmar. And I see Teresa, you've got your hand up.
So I just want to know where in all that money that's coming in, there is a line item for the shop to set up a shop in Tacoma, because it doesn't make sense to keep trying to get more houses out of the Seattle shop. We could duplicate that here in Tacoma. For how much, Kevin?
Oh, I mean, to put a shop together?
Yeah.
Oh, that, the jig system and everything else, I have no idea. That would have been developed before I was there.
All right, well, we need that number, and so that we can give it to, to Garrett and tell him to make it happen.
And in the short term, we're happy to provide some homes as kind of a demonstration project.
And you're muted, Maureen.
Got it, thanks. It seems to me that it could be a community and economic development project. And that would be a different pot of money and go through different processes. So we wouldn't be competing against ourselves for that kind of money. But no, I agree. I mean, seems like that's a workforce Central, or it's Jeff Robinson in the city, Community and Economic Development. I don't know who handles it in the county. But it just seems to me that once we had some idea, in fact, we could ask them to, I mean, these are people who know what it costs to set up that kind of a shop. So anyway.
Yeah, good thinking, Maureen. And a couple more hands up. Ed?
Kevin, do you have any idea how much of that 75,000 is in the foundation and bringing utilities?
I think it's about 15,000 in terms of the foundation, the plumbing, the wiring, and all that work. Some of our savings comes from we tend to get some stuff. We do a lot of volunteer labor in the shop and stuff. So it would be more if you're setting up your own shop, depending on how you ran it, it would probably cost more. Again, that's partly why we go slow, is we kind of go at the speed of our community.
Oh, thank you.
Great. And Rosemary?
You're muted.
I see that.
Muted. There you go.
Oh, I just wanted to suggest in this idea of developing the shop here in Tacoma that we might reach out to the Port of Tacoma Commission, because yesterday at their meeting, they were reflecting upon the issue of homelessness and how it had impacted the port in the folks who were living on port property, and recognizing that while they're not set up to do homelessness work, they are expected to be an economic development engine for the county area. And so they might in fact be the place we could ask for, whoever the we is, but for some engagement around the development of this kind of economic opportunity for a small nonprofit who might want to do it, or a for-profit that could do it. So I think just wanted to put that out there.
Hey, Teresa, I just emailed you a copy of the photo I've been trying to share. I don't know if you'll be able to get it and share it, but the exterior of the new model of home with the juniper.
Sorry, my email is being wonky today. So can you just put it in the chat? Just click on the little
I can try.
little paper thing and add it to the chat, and then
You're asking me to be technical, but I'll give it a shot.
or yeah, send it to Rob. He can share it with everybody. So the other thing about this is I think it would be a good idea for Facing Homelessness to consider expanding into Pierce County and just being the organization that that collaborated with us here in Pierce.
I'm sure my board would entertain proposals for how that might happen. Again, part of the thing is, and I don't know that our case management team is already traveling the length of Seattle. So in terms of the wraparound services and others, I don't know how, that might be something where we could partner with a local agency to do that. Because as you all know, being able to move into a home, no matter how nice, doesn't solve the trauma that either led you to or occurred while you were on the street. So for the success of the person, that part is really key.
Yeah, so good partnerships, but it would be, you have the expertise, your team has the expertise to set something like this up.
Yeah. So
seems like better than reinventing the wheel.
Yeah, I think we could look at that as a project. I mean, because we do get we've been asked. I remember a guy in Vermont was asking if we were going to come and do it in Vermont. I'm like, yeah, I don't think so, but Tacoma's a lot closer. So.
Well, thank you, Kevin. If you do get a chance to email that photo to me, I can share it.
Well, I still have your
MDC.
I still have your MDC email. So if you just put your email in the chat, I will paste it into the email.
And I did do that. Yeah, I did that.
Okay.
Here just a moment ago. We're rapidly running out of time in today's meeting. Kevin, thank you again, and Elmar and Teresa for sharing. Kevin, if you want to, I put the link to the Block Project website and that I was sharing briefly on screen. if you want to put your contact information in the chat so folks can reach out to you, that would be great.
Yeah, and your email didn't show up in there, so if you want to try it one more time.
Huh. Okay, I can do that.
And mine is in there now. Did I type it right? I did.
You did. Yeah, here I am. This is the most compelling content on a meeting ever at this point.
I like, yeah, I'm glad for that. And hopefully, I mean, it would excite me no end to have this happening in Tacoma, because I may work in Seattle, but I still live here and it's still my first love. So
yeah.
Y'all are my people.
Well, thanks, Kevin.
Yeah,
So we've
thanks,
only got
everyone.
a couple minutes left in the meeting, and I wanted to create some space after I get this phone call to go away, to create some space for people to share items for the good of the order. Does anybody have anything that they would like to share? Monique.
Hi, thank you. So, just a little backstory. Keller Williams said they were going to hold a fundraiser for Fob Hope. And for some reason, a couple months ago, they said, we're not going to do it. So my site manager said, I'm going to take over and I'm going to do a fundraiser for us. So I sent this out to the listserv, but just so you know, on October 29th from 5:30 to 9 at the Puyallup Eagles, we'll be having a fundraiser. We have a band. We're serving a meal. I believe it's lasagna, salad, dinner rolls, and then they'll have their bar open. We're having a bucket raffle and a live auction with some Seahawks memorabilia and a surface. So if you can get out there, send your friends, your family, cousins, uncles, aunts, anybody you know, to go to this fundraiser and help us raise some money for the village. We would appreciate it. The Puyallup Eagles on the 29th, starting at 5:30. Thank you.
Thank you, Monique. And briefly, I wanted to share this. Make that go away. This is the image of the block home, the most recent version that Kevin emailed to me. So thank you, Kevin. All right. Anyone else with items for the good of the order? Okay, and I do love to offer the opportunity for folks to share any success stories that they would like to share. Anybody have anything that they'd like to share this week to wrap us up? Yeah, Jessica and then Zev.
All right, I have a good story. So I have a couple of clients. They moved up here from out of state. They're young, 20, and she was pregnant, and they have no family support whatsoever. They came up here and stayed with a family friend for a minute and got kicked out. I was kind of like scrambling, and I reached out to Paula from New Hope. Obviously, she's fantastic, and we worked something out. But then the next day, I got a housing referral for Helping Hands for them. So I don't know if the universe just works things out really well. But they're now in an apartment with their 2-month-old, and they don't have to worry about being kicked out from one couch to the next, which I know how that feels. So
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Jessica. And Zev, did you want to share something?
Yeah, Serve the People, Tacoma, which I helped run, got a head start on preparing for the winter season this year. So at the start of the summer, we started collecting tarps, tents, sleeping bags, hand warmers. We've got about 1,000 hand warmers, 20, 30 of the other things, and we raised another $2,000 this month from the community to go towards more supplies for folks. So yeah, we're pretty well prepared going into the winter, more than last year, and we're yeah, looking forward to serving in the community.
Awesome. Thank you, Zev, for sharing that. And Maureen, you want to wrap us up?
Sure. So it's about a year, I think, since Jeffrey Boyce, I don't think he's on, but he can watch this. was on site at 34th and Pacific during the Friday morning meeting, and he took a photo of a for sale sign. Pierce County had posted property that it owned that was adjacent to that encampment. And I took that and went to Heather Moss and Jeff Robinson and said, how about combining these properties and creating some affordable housing? And can we use the property for an encampment, or not an encampment, but a sanctioned shelter site until the developer is ready to develop the property? And so the mission put in the proposal. They'll run the site, and I know it doesn't meet everybody's ideas of what it should be like, but that's 50 tents on pallets in safety that we would not have had if this chain of events hadn't started. So don't ever think that some little thing that you see might not lead to something that benefits more people than you imagined.
Thank you, Maureen. That's great perspective to close us out on today. So thank you everyone for being here this week and putting up with the changes in the agenda and everything else. We'll try to have our acts together a little better next week, but thank you everyone and have a good, safe weekend. We'll see you next Friday. And if you have the capacity to help us plan for upcoming meetings, we're gonna stay in this space and in about 5 minutes start our planning or scheming, whichever works.